Magic Tree House, Book Number 44, A Merlin Mission, A Ghost Tale for Christmas Time, written by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 9, The Three Ghosts. A ghost story? Said Jack. You mean we'll make ghosts appear? Yep, said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Ghosts made him nervous. I promise this will work, said Annie. But I don't get it, said Jack. A ghost story. How can we change Turtles with that? We won't change him. The ghosts will change him, just like they changed Scrooge, said Annie. Our job is just to make the right ghosts appear. But, started Jack. It's magic, Jack, said Annie. We have to trust the magic. But Charles doesn't even want us around, said Jack. That's okay, said Annie. He doesn't have to see us. He can believe it's all happening in his imagination. He has a great imagination, you know. Come on, before he leaves. Jack sighed. Okay, he said, but I hope we don't give him a heart attack. He unbuckled the green velvet bag and pulled out the violin and bow. Jack rested the bow against the strings of the violin. Then he began moving the bow back and forth. The violin's music was soft at first, but as it grew louder, it seemed to come from every direction. At the bottom of the hill, Charles lifted his head. Annie started singing in a soft, whispery voice. Come three ghosts in a dream-like swirl. Help our friend give his gifts to the world. The street lamp flickered and went out. Then a hazy glow surrounded Charles. He stood up and looked around. In the haze, a ghostly figure swirled into shape. Jack's heart pounded as he kept playing. Charles cried out and stumbled back. The ghost looked like both a child and an old man. He had long white hair, but there was not a wrinkle on his face. He wore a white tunic with a silver belt and carried a holly branch in his hand. Annie sang on. Do not fear him, Charles. Stand fast. He's come to share a Christmas past. The ghost waved his hand, and a scene slowly appeared in the glowing fog. A small, frail boy was lying on a heap of rags. Who are you, and why do you show me this poor child? Cried Charles. The boy rolled over and sat up. He had big eyes and wavy brown hair. Charles gasped. Oh my, he said. Is that me? The boy reached under the rags and pulled out a book. On the cover was a picture of a flying carpet. The boy opened the book and smiled. I remember that book. It is me, cried Charles. I loved to read the Arabian Nights. I felt as if I could ride on a flying carpet myself. Books gave me hope when I had no hope. But why do you show me this now? The ghost did not answer. He raised his pale hand in farewell. "Wait!" cried Charles. But the ghost faded into the haze, and the vision of young Charles Dickens faded with him. The glow still surrounded Charles. Jack's violin music swelled with deep tones. Annie sang on. "Come to Charles, O second ghost. It's your turn now to be the host." The haze became rose-colored. It swirled in the shape of a small cyclone. The funnel of vapor spun wider and wider until out from its center stepped a giant in a green robe. He had a bushy brown beard and wore icicles. He held a flaming torch high into the air. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" cried Charles. The ghost pointed into the mist and bellowed, "You say you'll write not one more book. Stop your weeping, man, and look." Charles stared as human shapes began to form in the mist. A young Victorian couple stood at a bookstall. "I'm getting the new book by Charles Dickens. I love Mr. Dickens." "I know you do, my dear, and so do I." The couple laughed joyfully, and another scene appeared beside them. A teacher stood in front of school children. "So what did we learn today from Mr. Dickens' book?" she asked. "We learned to be more generous and kind," a small girl answered. "Yes," the class shouted. As the children cheered, another scene took shape. Queen Victoria was sitting on her throne. "I say," the Queen said to a lady in waiting, "this Oliver Twist book is exceedingly interesting." "Poor Oliver! I had no idea children in our kingdom lived such dreadful lives." The Queen faded away, the couple faded away, and the teacher and the children. Everything faded away except the giant ghost. "They were all speaking about my books," Charles said in a voice filled with wonder. The giant ghost boomed. "Yet writing is nothing but paper and ink. A foolish task. Is that not what you think?" "Yes, no, yes, but," said Charles. The ghost shook his head sadly. Then he too vanished into the fog. Annie sang on. "Think about all you've been shown by this ghost, and get ready to meet your last ghostly host." The rosy glow faded to an eerie silver light. The air grew very cold. Then, like a dark shadow, a third ghost silently appeared. This ghost wore a black cape with the hood pulled over its head. Charles raised his walking stick to protect himself. Jack trembled with cold and fear, but he kept playing the violin. The ghost glided slowly toward Charles. "Who are you? What do you want?" Charles cried. A scene swirled into view beside the ghost. A group of people stood in a graveyard. A young woman was weeping near a tombstone. Why do you show me this scene of grief?" asked Charles. The ghost pointed a bony finger at the tombstone. Charles lowered his walking stick and crept closer. He squinted at the writing on the tombstone. He gasped. "It's my name," he cried. "My name is on that stone." "Poor Papa," the young woman said to the other mourners. "How sad that he stopped writing when he was so young. So many beautiful words might have been written. So many wonderful characters might have lived. If only he'd given more stories to the world, he might have touched the hearts of millions." The woman broke down in tears again. "Stop, stop," cried Charles. "I can't bear it." The scene began to fade. "Wait," Charles shouted to the ghost. "I've changed my mind. Tell her I will keep writing. Wait." But the ghost and the mourners and the tombstone had already disappeared into the fog. Charles Dickens stood alone in the cold silver light. Jack played one long, low note on the magic violin. Then there was silence. Chapter 10. A Christmas Carol. The gas street lamp flickered back on. Charles began pacing back and forth. "Come on, Jack," said Annie. "Let's go talk to him, quick." Jack packed up the violin and bow. Then he and Annie hurried down the hill to Charles. "Charles!" cried Annie. "Hello!" Charles whirled around. "Annie, Jack, you can't imagine what just happened." His voice was shaking. "I had the strangest visions. 3 ghosts came to me. They showed me visions of myself in the past, the present, and the future." "Really?" said Annie. "That sounds like a scene in a book." Yes, it certainly does," Charles said, laughing and wiping his eyes. "The ghosts made me want to keep writing. They taught me that I can truly help the world with my books. I must go home. I must find a cab and go home and get to work at once. I cannot waste another day, another hour, another minute. I must write. I love to write." He laughed with joy. "Then I guess we'll be going home too," said Jack, smiling. "Our job is done here." "Shall I tell the cab to let you off somewhere?" asked Charles. "We need to go to Hyde Park," said Annie. "Wonderful, it's on the way. Come along," said Charles. He took off, running up the hill, dashing ahead of Jack and Annie. When they caught up with him, they saw a horse and cab clattering over the cobblestones. "Stop, sir! Give us a ride, please!" Charles shouted to the driver. The driver brought his horse to a halt. Jack and Annie followed Charles to the cab. "Hyde Park, then 1 Devonshire Terrace. Please hurry," said Charles. The driver looked delighted. "Yes, Mr. Dickens, sir," he said. The 3 of them crowded into the cab, and the horse began to trot through the dark, foggy city, its hooves clopping on the cobblestones. "Ah," said Charles, clapping his hands, "I know now what I shall write about. I will write a Christmas story about a man whose life is changed by 3 ghosts. The ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. What do you think of that?" "It sounds brilliant," said Annie. "I agree," said Charles. "I'll write about a greedy, selfish man who helps no one, like Mr. Pinch. But I'll call him, what shall I call him?" "How about Scrooge?" said Annie. "Wonderful name." Charles laughed. "Mr. Scrooge, I love it. The three ghosts will change Scrooge's life. Do you like that idea?" "Love it," said Jack. "Good," said Charles. "I think I shall just be able to write the story in time for Christmas. Perhaps I'll call it a ghost story of Christmas." Or maybe you could just call it a Christmas carol," said Jack. "Oh, I love that," said Charles. "Yes, perhaps I'll call it a Christmas carol, and then underneath those words I'll write being a ghost story of Christmas." "That sounds good," said Annie. "That should make people want to read it," said Charles. "Everyone loves a ghost story, don't they?" "Well," started Jack. "Of course they do," said Charles. "It all makes sense to me now. I will keep using my books to fight greed and cruelty. My pen is my sword, except my books will never celebrate wars and fighting. They'll always show the joys and sorrows of real people. They'll show how good always triumphs over evil." "Great," said Jack. Charles sat back in his carriage seat and chuckled, his eyes shining in the lamplight. "I'm as light as a feather, as happy as an angel. Am I not the luckiest man on earth?" "I think you might be," said Annie. The horse came to a stop. "Hyde Park, Mr. Dickens, sir," the driver called down. "Well, Jack and Annie, I hope you have enjoyed your time with me. I trust I have been of some help to you," said Charles. He sounded like the old Charles, pleased and proud of himself. Jack didn't mind. A happy Charles was much better than a sad one. "Yes," said Charles, "but we have to give this back to you." He pulled out the leather wallet that Charles had given them. "Thanks, but we don't need it." "Oh, no, please keep it," said Charles. "Buy food with the money. Buy boots. Buy books." "Actually, we have lots of books," said Jack. "And we have food at home, and shoes and parents. We have everything we need." "Charles, please share it with others who aren't so lucky," said Annie. "Why, I don't know what to say," said Charles. "You two are the most extraordinary children I've ever met. Clearly you have good, generous hearts. You already live the message I want to write in a Christmas carol." Annie smiled. "Yeah, well, it's always good to be reminded," she said. "I can't wait to read your story." "And where will you go now?" asked Charles. "Will you be safe?" "Yes, and our parents take good care of us," said Jack. "You don't have to worry." "I shall never forget you," said Charles. "We won't forget you either," said Annie. "Goodbye, Charles." Jack and Annie hopped down from the cab and took off through the park. The fog was so thick it was impossible to see the treehouse. Jack couldn't even see Annie. He was relieved when she called out, "I found it!" Jack ran toward the sound of Annie's voice. She was already halfway up the ladder. As he started up after her, church bells began to bong, striking the hour. Jack and Annie climbed inside the treehouse and looked out the window. But there was nothing to see, nothing except the heavy fog. "Turtles is going to be fine," said Annie. "Yep," said Jack with a smile. "He never even knew that it was us who helped him." "That's the best way to help someone, I think," said Annie. "Why?" asked Jack. "Then you know you're not helping them just to get a lot of credit," said Annie. "You're helping them because it's the right thing to do." Jack nodded. What Annie had just said felt true. "Ready to go home now?" he said. He picked up the Pennsylvania book. Annie nodded. Jack pointed to a picture of the Frog Creek woods. "I wish we could go home," he said. The wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 11. Gifts to the World. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. The sky was lit by the orange afterglow of the sunset. Jack and Annie were wearing their jeans and jackets and sneakers again. The green velvet bag had changed back into Jack's backpack. "Jack, Annie!" Two voices called from the woods below. Jack and Annie looked out the window. Teddy and Kathleen stood in the shadows beneath them. "Hi, hi!" Jack and Annie called. They quickly climbed down the rope ladder and hopped the ground. "We're glad to see you," said Annie. "Why are you here?" Before Teddy or Kathleen could answer, the leaves rustled, and out from the dark trees stepped Morgan Le Fay and Merlin the magician. "Morgan, Merlin," said Annie. "Peep, Penny," said Jack. Waddling behind Merlin was the baby penguin Jack and Annie had given to Merlin after their trip to Antarctica. "Peep." Kathleen picked up Penny and held the little penguin in her arms. "Peep, peep." Jack and Annie laughed. "How are you, Penny?" asked Jack. "She is wonderful," said Morgan. "She is dearly loved in Camelot. I would say Penny has become the very heart of our kingdom." "She hasn't gotten any bigger," said Jack. Merlin smiled. "Time passes very slowly in Camelot," he said. "Indeed," said Morgan. "Camelot has hardly aged at all since we last saw you." "But you have accomplished much in that time," said Merlin. "You have completed your missions to help 4 artists give their gifts to the world. And from all we hear," said Morgan, "you were as successful with Charles Dickens as you were with Lady Augusta Gregory, Louis Armstrong, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart." "I guess we were," Jack said modestly. "I loved Charles," said Annie. "I loved all of them. I felt like we became good friends with them." "Yeah, and I'm really sad that I won't see them again," said Jack. "We thought you might feel that way," said Kathleen. Merlin and Morgan have something to show you, said Teddy. But first, may we have the magic violin and bow back? Asked Kathleen. Oh, sure, said Jack. He reached into his backpack and pulled out the violin and bow. Teddy took the violin from him, and Kathleen took the bow. On your last 4 missions, you played a magic violin, a magic Irish whistle, a magic trumpet, and a magic flute, said Kathleen. Jack and Danny nodded. Do you remember where the magic came from? Said Kathleen. She tossed the violin bow into the air. It was still for a moment. Then it began to twirl around and around. There was a flash of blue light. The violin and bow disappeared. Floating in the air was an object shaped like the spiraled horn of a unicorn. The wand of Dianthus, Jack and Danny said together. Yes, said Kathleen. She plucked the wand from the air and handed it to Merlin. Merlin closed his eyes. He waved the wand of Dianthus in a circle and whispered words Jack couldn't understand. There was a whoosh of wind, and they were all standing at the corner of Jack and Danny's street. Some people were walking by in the dusk. Jack looked worriedly at Merlin, Morgan, Teddy, Kathleen, and Penny. What would people say when they saw them? Do not worry, Morgan said, as if she could read Jack's mind. They see and hear only you and Danny. Listen carefully, said Merlin. Jack listened. Beautiful music was coming from a house on the corner. A string quartet is rehearsing for a Mozart concert at a church this Saturday, said Merlin. Oh, wow, said Annie. Merlin waved the wand in a circle and whispered more magic words. Whoosh! They were all standing outside a window of a large brick building. Inside, kids were playing trumpets, saxophones, and drums. Hey, it's the band room at the middle school, Jack said. Yes, the band is rehearsing a Louis Armstrong song for the jazz festival next week, said Morgan. Again, Merlin waved the wand in a circle and whispered magic words. Whoosh! They all stood at a window of a white wooden building. It's the Frog Creek Library, said Annie. Inside the library, a woman sat in an armchair, talking and waving her hands. Children sat at her feet, listening. A storyteller is telling Irish folk tales, said Kathleen. Stories collected by Augusta Gregory. Merlin waved the wand in a circle and whispered magic words again. Whoosh! They were all standing at the back of a dark auditorium. Actors were rehearsing on the stage. Back by popular demand, Teddy whispered, the Frog Creek Little Theater presents Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Yay! We can go see it again, whispered Danny. Yes, and that is how you will visit with Charles Dickens again, said Merlin. Charles Dickens, Lady Augusta Gregory, Louis Armstrong, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and all other great artists live on through their work, said Morgan. You put your 4 friends on the path to giving their gifts to the world," said Kathleen. "And the world still receives their gifts," said Teddy. "You accomplished your mission," Merlin said to Jack and Danny. "Thank you for helping bring happiness to millions." "You're welcome," said Jack. "No problem," said Annie. Jack turned back to watch the rehearsal of A Christmas Carol. The ghost of Christmas Future had just left the stage, and Scrooge was alone in his bedroom. The actor playing Scrooge started hopping about, laughing and crying in the same breath. "I am as light as a feather," he shouted. "I am as happy as an angel." Jack and Annie laughed at Scrooge's wild joy. Jack turned around to laugh with the others, but they were gone. Merlin, Morgan, Teddy, Kathleen, and Penny had all vanished. "Where?" Jack said. "They must have gone home to Camelot," said Annie. "But I'll bet we'll see them again soon." Jack nodded. "We should go home now, too," he said. As Scrooge was shouting "Merry Christmas" to the world, Jack and Annie slipped out of the Frog Creek Little Theater. Then they ran through the cool autumn evening, heading for home.